how do you source new real estate opportunities?
Well, it's pretty complicated. I mean, at this point, it's acquisitions team. You know, we have in our group now we have a substantial portfolio, right? And it certainly helps to have that kind of portfolio when you're going into a given market. So um, it's different. And I think what your question is getting at is like, okay, when I was doing $1 million deal, or a $2 million deal, how did I source that? That's a good question. Um, the first building I ever bought was a big loser. It was a big loser, but it was fortunately was it didn't, it was like a it was like a $500,000 building, and I lost like $300,000 on it. So I was maximally efficient at losing money on it. But there's the old saying about how you make money or lose money in real estate on the buy, and that's very true. What I had done initially was I didn't take anybody's advice in this first building I bought, and just was basically basing it on numbers. That's all I did. Numbers. I read Kenny McElroy, again, who's my friend now. I read ABC's of real estate and advanced real estate and all this stuff, and I was like, yeah, it's easy, a bunch of numbers. I'm like a math guy. And so I just did the numbers, and boy, this deal looks great. Well, I couldn't have been so more wrong about it. In real estate, it's, especially in the smaller stuff like this, it's so easy to fudge numbers, and property management becomes such a big deal. There was a lot of nefarious activity in this acquisition from the seller side, and I didn't know any of that. So lost money on it. The numbers were very good if they were real, but I didn't know how to look at a deal to make sure they were real. So that from that day onward, I never went out there and just looked at random deals and did them. I had the good fortune at this point of knowing some lenders, and I knew some, particularly one guy who kept feeding me these deals, and he would underwrite them, and he would know the seller, he would know me, and they were essentially off market deals that kept happening for me. And it was a really good situation. And it wasn't because the numbers were hard to figure out, but the off market deals, especially when there was known quantities on the sell side and people who were bringing it to me were people I trusted, I could believe in the numbers. And that's an ongoing theme in this space, right? If it was just numbers, all of us doctors and engineers would be crushing it, right? Because we're good at numbers. But it's not. It's more than that. It's a lot more than that. It's about operations. It's about knowing the right people. And real estate is ultimately like anything else. Success in this space is about knowing the right people. So I would never, now, of course, now when you're dealing with assets that are 50, $100 million assets, like we are, it's a different ball game because you can't fudge those numbers, right? You can't fudge them. It's now you're talking about small businesses. These are no longer $1 million, $2 million apartment buildings where you can, the landlord can go mess around with numbers and make it seem fake. You can't do that because every one of these assets is a great big asset. It's a small business essentially. This is no longer real estate. This is a small business. Um, and and so those are a lot easier to go on market and bid because that, and then you have an entire scalable, due diligence team and all that. It's a completely different world. But for small time investors, I think the smartest thing you can do, honestly, if you're like looking at buying your own buildings and stuff, is create relationships with lenders and with brokers that run very deep, and to the point where they know that you are somebody who's going to be a repeat customer if you do them right, right? So I must have bought 5, 6 apartment buildings from the same uh, seller over and over again because of this one lender that we both knew. And a lot of this ends up being what sounds like luck, and there is some luck to it. But the thing is, you have to be looking for the luck. Right? A lot of times things happen around you that that are good luck, but they're not really good luck unless you're looking for them. And so this is kind of the name of the game. Long story short, I think particularly when you're looking at small assets, it has to be based on a relationship. I would never buy something right now that was like, 2-3 million bucks without knowing like somebody and it being off market and all this stuff. And that's relationships.